and welcome to Label Sessions Presents, the podcast where we talk to the most interesting people about all the things you need to know in the world of innovation, business, design, tech, and culture. I'm Fuzlin Esau, and today we're joined by two new label mates, as well as Nick Sherrard and Josh Nixon from the Label Sessions team. Quick welcome, hello and welcome to Vicki Joshi, a champion of the outside-in customer-first approach who has worked across insurance, financial services, tech, consumer brands, aligning product, service, and teams to truly meet customer needs. Welcome, Vicki. Also, a big welcome to Patricia Lorton, who has worked across some of Europe's most complex industrial environments in both legacy and emerging sectors to turn abstract sustainability ambitions into tangible, measurable outcomes for improving environmental performance as well as business resilience. This week, we're actually kicking off with sustainability talk. And do consumers now care more about the climate crisis than companies? So the political and regulatory climate in many countries is now more hostile than in the past to the word ESG. Though that is by no means true in all parts of the world, consumer sentiment, though, seems to be persistently pro-sustainability. How should innovators inside companies think about sustainability now? Is it something to see as a platform for innovation, or has it become a liability?
I don't think consumers care more than businesses. I think that businesses, from my perspective, it's almost become so complex and so difficult to know where to start. And it's one of many, many priorities. And it's actually, how do you make sure that that priority interlocks with everything else that you're trying to achieve, so it doesn't feel like it's something that, runs separately. From a consumer perspective, yes, we continue to see that consumers are saying that sustainability matters. They want to spend their money with brands who are doing better things for the environment, better things for the climate. However, I think there's a big education piece to be done there. Around that sort of stuff does not happen overnight. I think it's that sort of progress versus perfection expectation, actually, from a consumer perspective. So I don't think it's necessarily that the brands don't care. I think it's that there's an element of overwhelm. There's a lot going on. It's like, where do you start? And also making sure that you don't get caught in you don't want to be caught for greenwashing or doing anything like that. You need to make sure that whatever you are going to do, you deliver. Whatever you say, you actually deliver, because that can have a bigger harmful effect on your brand and your reputation from a consumer perspective than anything else. So I agree that consumers continue to be very focused on sustainability. I think that there needs to be more education on exactly what that looks like. And I'll give you one example before I let somebody else jump in. We, as an insurance industry, we spent a lot of time and effort trying to make sure that people can get access to refurbished parts when they're trying to get their car back on the road. And what we found was actually a significantly lower number of individuals were willing to take that up. So when it came to actually getting their car fixed and back on the road, they wanted the new part because they've been conditioned to think that new was better. But at the same time, there's this pull to become more sustainable. But it's okay that I'm going to be more sustainable in terms of maybe where I buy my clothes or how I get my toiletries. But actually, when it comes to something that's big and fundamental, like how safe my car is, people have still got like an element of trust or mistrust, if you like, around maybe refurbished parts, etc. So I think we've got to continue to educate consumers around what sustainability really means and the role that they can play in helping organisations start to become more sustainable and offer more sustainable products and services.
Patricia, how does that sort of then resonate with the organization, with businesses? How are they sort of viewing sustainability right now?
So there is an obvious backlash that we are facing right now. But sustainability is sustainable. It's a matter of understanding aims, adapting the narrative and the strategy. So if we focus on three mainstream, organization focuses on growth, competitiveness, and profitability. Society aims for well-being, environmental care, and prosperity. And nature calls for reduced impact on climate, resource, and biodiversity. So these three are interlinked and converged. For example, talents, they prioritize organization with appropriate sustainability approach. And talents are pivotal for an organization innovation and growth. Nature boundaries call for new circular economy models, nature-based solutions. So beside environmental benefit, it can generate savings. And we need talent and innovation for this. So we see the link here. We see as well the start of the economic shift from ownership to access and services. A preparedness to adapted business model is pivotal for an organization to thrive. Again, we need the talents to translate this into a potential 2% growth. So these three serve each other. So just 3 examples. This is a clear demonstration that we need to speak about ESE, environmental, social, and economy. So we are back to square one with a new narrative and roadmap where sustainability serves not only the environment and society, but the organization, economy, and its readiness.
The thing I was just picking up on was one of the things that's interesting for us at Label Sessions is because we kind of sit alongside boards in different geographies around the world, you kind of see there's a real spread on this just now. And actually there's a weird risk in some ways, I think, that people in Europe misunderstand what's happened in America. Because actually, you know, there's a spectrum of boards that we work with in America. So some were more keen on what was coming kind of messaging wise from government than others. But there's certainly an interesting thing where that regulatory environment has now become hostile to ESG across most parts of the States. But there was about 24 hours maybe when people felt, oh, that means we're kind of off the hook. Because actually what then came was Made in America, which is one of the biggest supply chain challenges to American companies that there's been there for some time. And alongside it, this kind of new thing on the sort of boardroom agenda, which is resilience of supply chains in general, based on where they are, you know, internationally. So really what we have now is a kind of era of kind of supply chain accountability, is the phrase I've been using with people, because it's, you know, in some parts of the world, it's very much still within that ESG frame in terms of what you're being asked to comply with. Some places it's more about onshoring, or it's more about trying to work out how you make your supply chain resilient given all the changes that are going on in the world. But that's just like a big shift for companies to get their head around. And in some ways I worry that companies in Europe are thinking, hey, we're the good guys because we're still on this ESG agenda, without realizing that the world has changed now. So it's not like you kind of go entirely back to the way things were a decade ago. Right now, whether it's your regulator, whether it's customers to some degree, certainly other stakeholders, everyone's going to be asking you to report on and be accountable on how the hell you make the thing. And then I guess the other challenge for us on the other side of this is, we've always been close to the kind of ESG proposition development and product making and things. And I just think also that we need to get our head around the fact that, if we want to drive a green transition, and the thing we need to do is make green products that are actually desirable for customers, to your point, Vicki, which is actually, there's been a bit of a sense that actually it was all going to be done by regulation, which is maybe also always a little bit idealistic. And actually the challenge, if you're an innovator inside a company right now who cares about climate change, is to find a way to make the thing you make with less impact on the world, but make it really desirable. It's actually a really interesting time, I think, where almost for a little while, people looked down on people that were driving green innovation in companies and were inside the marketing department. That was a big thing for the last few years. But like, it's only skin deep. And it's like, no, that bit's really important. How the hell can you get the thing to your point, actually, Vicki, in terms of how the hell do you get people around the idea that buying a refurbished product might be just as exciting and desirable as buying a new one? That's where a lot of the innovation needs to be now.
I mean, I fully agree with what you said, Nick. And it's exactly this when I said we need to turn on the sustainability narrative into exactly an adaptive narrative. So, and it can be that the narrative differs from one place to the other, from one organization to the other, because they are different culture, they are different customers. And as well, that connect very well to what Vicki said at the beginning, listen to the customers. Yeah. And the value proposition is all of a sudden adapted, but still sustainable, and make it attractive while having a positive impact on environmental and social, because everything is interconnected.
And listen, I like that point about listening as well, because I also think there's a thing we see in the customer research popping up a lot, where I feel like there's a lot of customers, certainly in Europe, who will express the fact that they don't really buy into climate change. But you can also see a very much target market for lots of green propositions. We did an interview recently with this guy. He started off the session because we were asking some questions around a green thing. This guy, I hate the green thing. I hate companies talking about the green thing. And then he was like, why the hell do companies not just give me this option, which is all I really want to do is insulate my house. I want to get an EV so I don't have to pay the petrol companies anymore. And I want to just reduce all of my energy bills. And that was just got a really interesting tactic where as such, he was saying, I hate all of your messaging, but I really want to do all the things that you want me to do. There's a really interesting kind of proposition opportunity, I think.
But that comes back to that point around really understanding your customers. And your customers will be in different segments, and different segments will require you to be able to explain to them the benefits in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I think you've got, new younger segments of society coming through, and they've just got an expectation that they are going to buy from brands that have got, that are B Corp, that have got green credentials, that actively go out there and say they're going to do better things for the world. Mm-hmm. But you've then got sort of some other segments that have lived in a world where actually compromise on a regular basis is something that they're used to making. And actually often that compromise comes down to price.
Yeah.
At the moment, from a green and sustainable perspective, that often means a little bit more cash needs to be spent sometimes in order to be able to get that solution. So you've almost got these new segments of society coming in that have got this real, evangelical, this is how this should be. Why wouldn't I spend my money with brands that are doing good things for our planet? But they haven't necessarily got the spending power right now. The spending power sits with the people that are in some of these segments of society that have made compromise decisions in the past around, okay, well, actually, I am going to go with the new part because, for the last 30 years, that's the thing that I've always been comfortable with, and I'm not quite willing to take the chance just yet. But at the same time, I'll feel a bit better at the weekend because I'll go and say, yes, I'll plant a tree or whatever else it might be. So, I think it's just going to take time for different segments of society who absolutely need to understand the benefits of being greener in slightly different ways, and the role that they play individually in their decision making with the brands that they spend their money in on a day-to-day basis, and the impact that can have. Where you spend your money has a massive impact on, if you decide to stop spending with a brand, they're going to listen really, really quickly. You'd be surprised how quickly these brands that don't innovate as quickly as you need them to or you want them to start to innovate when their customers start to speak by walking away and no longer spending with them.